Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
It's funny how people talk about breakups like there's always some kind of build-up. Screaming matches, crying, packing boxes, one of you throwing a plate while the other ducks and yells, "You always do this." You know, TV drama. That wasn't how it went down for me. We were sitting on the patio, wine glasses sweating in the summer air. Sabrina had just made some offhand comment about how she missed living near the beach, like our quiet neighborhood in the hills was a personal insult to her social status. I remember I chuckled and said something dumb like, "Well, the mortgage likes it up here," trying to lighten the mood. She didn't laugh. Instead, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "I think we should get a divorce." Just like that. Like she was suggesting we try Thai food tonight instead of sushi. The thing is, I didn't react the way she expected. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't even ask her why. I just nodded, finished my sip of wine, and said, "All right." And in that exact moment, something changed behind her eyes. I couldn't tell if it was confusion, guilt, or panic, but I saw it. The flicker. Like she'd rehearsed this moment in her head 100 times, but I didn't read the script right. Thing is, I already knew something was off before she said a word. We'd been married 9 years. No kids, not by accident. We tried a couple times, talked about it, got close, then backed out. Life happened. Jobs got busy. Time slipped by. We weren't unhappy, at least not in a way you could point at and name. We still made each other coffee in the mornings. We still watched movies on Friday nights. But somewhere along the line, the conversations turned into schedules. Her touch became polite. My jokes didn't make her laugh anymore. They made her sigh. She started dressing up more for client dinners, even though she was in marketing and most of her clients were online. She changed her phone passcode without telling me, after years of sharing everything without even thinking about it. She started answering calls in the other room. Then she stopped answering them altogether if I was nearby. Just those little things that don't scream cheating, but they don't exactly whisper loyalty either. I'd bring something up, like how she didn't come to my work dinner after saying she would, and she'd turn it into a commentary on how I was too sensitive, or not ambitious enough, or how she needed something more. And the messed up part is, I believed her. For a while, anyway. I thought maybe I was becoming boring. Stuck. A background character in her spotlight. But when she said divorce, I felt nothing. No rage. No grief. Just a weird, empty sense of clarity. Like I'd been walking through fog for months, and someone finally opened a window. She looked a little startled at how calm I was. I think she expected begging, maybe some anger. Something to validate her role as the victim in whatever story she'd been rehearsing for her friends. "Did you hear what I said?" she asked, blinking. I nodded. "You want a divorce. And you're just okay with that?" I tilted my head. "You seem like you've been okay with it for a while." That got her. She blinked again, slower this time. No comeback. No biting sarcasm. Just silence. She got up and walked inside. I stayed on the patio and watched the shadows stretch across our backyard, wondering how many more nights I'd be here. Wondering why I didn't feel more broken. Maybe it's because I'd already been grieving her for months. The next morning, she was already on the phone with someone, I assumed a lawyer. Her voice was all business, as if she was negotiating the sale of a car instead of the end of a marriage. I heard her say things like amicable and equitable, and "I think I can keep the house." She spoke with this smug assurance, like the next chapter of her life had already been drafted and filed. Meanwhile, I packed a bag, tossed my essentials in the back of the car, and texted my buddy Nate. Told him I'd take him up on the offer to crash at his guest house. He replied 2 minutes later with the code to the lockbox and a 6-pack of my favorite beer waiting in the fridge. As I pulled out of the driveway, I watched her from the mirror. She was standing by the window, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't crying, either. But she wasn't winning yet. And she sure as hell hadn't realized what she'd just lost. Sabrina thought she'd dropped a bombshell. But when I didn't explode, she didn't know what to do with the silence. It rattled her. The first couple of days after I left, she didn't text, didn't call, nothing. I figured she was playing it cool, trying to convince herself she'd made the right call. She probably told her friends I was mature about it, that I handled it well. She might have even said it made things easier than she thought they'd be. But the truth is, Sabrina had always relied on friction. She needed it. She needed to feel like she was important enough to disrupt something. When that didn't happen, when I walked away without a scene, she didn't get satisfaction. She got static. I started hearing about it through the grapevine. Our mutual friend Jamie, who was always neutral during drama, called to check on me. She said Sabrina mentioned the divorce. Just surprised, honestly. She sounded weird about it. Not sad, but like she was waiting for something that didn't come. Like what? I asked. She paused. I don't know. Like a fight, maybe. I let out a quiet laugh. Yeah, not giving her that. I stayed at Nate's place. Simple, quiet, tucked behind his workshop with a view of pine trees and a barbecue pit I'd forgotten how much I loved. He gave me space, only checking in when it was time to eat or hand me a beer. The first night there, I sat under the string lights on his back deck, staring up at the stars and wondering how long it had been since I'd looked up without checking my phone every 5 seconds. The weird part? I felt good. Lighter. Like I'd stepped out of a suit of armor I didn't realize I was wearing. Meanwhile, Sabrina was unraveling slowly, carefully, behind closed doors. She sent the first text 3 days later. Just so you know, I've scheduled time with a mediator. It'll make the process faster for both of us. No emotion. No question. Just business. I replied. Sounds fine. Let me know the time. No emoji. No punctuation. Nothing for her to feed on. She sent another message 2 hours later. We should also talk about the house. I think it makes sense for me to keep it, since I'll be staying in town. I waited until the next day to respond. Sure, you can have it. I imagined that one hit harder than the first, because Sabrina liked to win. But what she couldn't handle, what she never expected, was winning by default. No resistance. No fight. Just surrender. The problem with getting everything you want is realizing you never really wanted it. You just wanted to prove you could take it. It didn't help that I didn't make a fuss over the furniture, or the joint accounts, or even the dog we never ended up getting. She had her list of items prepared. I tore through them in 5 minutes with, take what you want. That left her with nothing to argue about. And people like her, they don't know how to fill silence when they're not playing the victim or the victor. I heard she was already telling friends I'd been checked out of the marriage for a while. That I wasn't present. That she needed more from life. I didn't dispute it. Didn't try to defend myself. Let her paint whatever picture helped her sleep. But behind the scenes, I was already making calls of my own. Not to lawyers. To brokers. Accountants. People who knew how to make quiet moves with long-term impact. See, what Sabrina didn't know, and wouldn't know until it was far too late, was that this wasn't my first loss. Life had taught me how to lose things I loved without making a sound. I'd lost my dad to a heart attack when I was 19. My first startup to a crooked investor at 27, and my peace of mind to this marriage by 33. By the time she asked for the divorce, I already knew how to survive loss. What she didn't know was how to survive regret. And that was coming for her. Not because I wanted revenge, but because sometimes life just hands people exactly what they ask for. I started the paperwork the same day she sent the text about the mediator. She probably thought she was leading the show, but I'd already stepped off stage. I'm not a man who usually holds secrets. I don't like games, don't like posturing, but sometimes silence isn't a retreat, it's a strategy. And Sabrina never did learn the difference. She thought I was folding. In reality, I'd already made the one move that mattered most. I stopped caring what she thought. The moment that clicked in my head, everything changed. I didn't answer her calls. Didn't respond to her, just checking in texts. She wasn't checking in. She was checking up, seeing if I was spiraling, waiting for me to beg, or get bitter, or show weakness. She needed that to make her own choices feel justified. Instead, I got busy. And not just with boxes or legal forms. A year before all this, my uncle passed away, quiet man, kept to himself, never had kids. He used to call me the only one who showed up, and I guess I didn't realize how much that mattered to him until the will reading. Turns out, he left me more than some sentimental keepsakes and vintage baseball cards. He left me controlling interest in a mid-sized tech company he'd quietly funded over 2 decades. I'd helped him out on side projects here and there, never really thinking much of it. But what he gave me, it wasn't a gift. It was a door. It took a few months to get through the red tape and get briefed by the board, but by the time Sabrina was floating divorce, I already had a seat reserved, if I wanted it. I hadn't decided when I was going to take it. But now, it felt like the perfect time. I kept everything under wraps. Sabrina still thought I was some mid-level data analyst with a stagnant career. She never asked questions when I stayed late or traveled, just used it as ammo for her emotional withdrawal. It was easier for her to see me as small. That way, Whatever she was doing, whoever she was doing it with, felt like an upgrade. I wasn't surprised when I found out about the other guy. I didn't even have to dig. I just watched. She'd never been good at hiding things, just good at pretending they didn't exist. Like the phone calls that suddenly had laughter in them again. The clothes she wore that used to be saved for date nights. The perfume that hadn't seen daylight in months suddenly becoming her everyday scent. I knew the name eventually. Darren, a regional sales director from a neighboring firm. Met at some conference. She told a friend they had instant chemistry. Probably said something stupid like, "He sees me." The usual lines women use when they've already mentally left but need to feel poetic about it. Darren was married. Of course he was. That's what made it exciting. She thought she had him in her back pocket. That if she left me, he'd leave his wife, and they'd play house with big wine glasses and brunch photos. The reality? Darren was never going to burn his life down for Sabrina. Men like him don't. They just let the women they charm do the burning. By the second week, Sabrina started to show cracks. Her texts got longer. She wanted to talk in person. She started using soft words again. Maybe we rushed, could have handled things better, just want to understand where your head's at. I didn't respond. She needed closure. I wasn't in the business of giving it. Then the real kicker happened. She texted me late one night, 1:34 a.m., to be exact. Said she was sorry for how she handled everything. That she thought I'd fight harder. That she never meant to make it this way. I stared at that message for a long time, because I could hear the panic in her words. Something had shifted. Darren, maybe he ghosted her. Maybe he told her his wife was suspicious. Maybe she just realized she leapt from a lifeboat into the ocean with no idea how to swim. Doesn't really matter. All I know is, when people think they're about to inherit your kingdom, they stop looking at you like a king. They forget you built the damn walls. She thought the divorce was her idea. She didn't realize I'd been preparing for it long before she ever said the word. It didn't unravel all at once. No, that would have made it easier for her. Instead, it came apart like a thread she didn't notice tugging quiet, constant, until one day she looked down and realized the whole sweater was gone. The first real shift happened when she reached out to my sister. Now, Sabrina never liked my sister. Too blunt, too unfiltered, too right. But when people start slipping, they grab at anything. Even the hands they once swatted away. Lena called me after. "You're not gonna believe this," she said, practically laughing. She actually asked if you were seeing someone. I raised an eyebrow. "And you told her?" Lena snorted. "Told her it's none of her damn business." Then asked her how Darren's wife is doing. There was a pause. Then we both laughed. It was hollow, but it felt good. I wasn't seeing anyone. Not yet. But I was looking at my future through a different lens now. A clearer one. I wasn't building a life for her anymore. I was building one without her. And for the first time in years, I was excited about it. Meanwhile, Sabrina had started asking around about the house. She must have assumed it was a joint asset. After all, we both lived there. Both paid bills. But she never asked whose name was on the deed. Never noticed that when we refinanced last year, I did it through my personal LLC. Technically, I bought the house from myself. Legally speaking, she didn't own a single brick. I'd done it on a lawyer's advice months ago, back when things first started feeling off. Protect your assets, he said. You don't have to prepare for the worst. Just don't let it catch you unprepared. It didn't. The moment her lawyer brought up a property settlement, mine slid a folder across the table, proof of title, corporate separation, transactional logs. All legit. All final. Sabrina's face went pale. She blinked once. Twice. Then smiled like it was some kind of misunderstanding. "I'm sure we can negotiate something fair." My lawyer leaned back and said, "We already did. He's letting you walk away clean. Clean. But not free." She didn't say much after that. Just gathered her things and left the office in a silence thick enough to choke on. 2 days later, I heard from a mutual acquaintance that Darren had blocked her. Apparently, his wife had caught on. And unlike Sabrina, she wasn't about to play silent victim. Word is, the man's still sleeping in his Tesla. Probably regretting every "you up" he ever sent. Sabrina, on the other hand, was alone. No husband. No affair partner. No house. No fallback. Just a social circle that had started to ask questions she couldn't spin answers for. She called me again. Left a voicemail. "I think we should talk. Not about the paperwork. About us." I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because there was nothing to say. She thought I was a man she could discard and walk away from, only to find him waiting for her at the next chapter. What she didn't realize was I'd rewritten the whole damn book. And the ending? Didn't include her. I never wanted revenge. That's not what this was. Revenge is loud, messy, emotional. What I gave her was quieter. Something colder. Something final. Consequences. It's strange, the kind of silence that follows after someone thinks they've won. Not peace. Not closure. Just absence. The kind that echoes in empty rooms and unanswered messages. The kind Sabrina never saw coming. I don't know what she expected when she left that voicemail. Maybe that I'd be nostalgic. That hearing her voice would shake something loose in me. But by the time I listened to it, I wasn't angry. I was just tired. She said we should talk. That she'd made mistakes. That we'd rushed through everything and maybe we owed it to ourselves to revisit what we had. She used that phrase twice, what we had, as if it was some warm, glowing thing she could hold in her palm again just because she missed the weight of it. I didn't call back. Instead, I wrote her a letter. Didn't send it. Just needed to write it. Needed to hear myself say it all without interruption or interpretation. I told her that I would have forgiven her if she'd asked for it when it mattered. I would have gone to counseling. I would have rebuilt everything from the ground up with her, bare hands and scraped hearts and all, because I loved her. But she didn't want love. Not then. Not when I still had it to give. She wanted control. And she lost at the moment I didn't fight her for it. That was the irony. She thought I walked away to punish her. The truth is, I walked away to protect myself. To remember what peace sounded like in the spaces she used to fill with complaints and comparisons. She thought I was passive. She called it giving up. But it wasn't surrender. It was liberation. The final blow, though? That came from the most unexpected place. About a month after the paperwork was finalized, I was asked to speak at a leadership event. Nothing major, just a local thing hosted by one of the startups my uncle had invested in. I debated whether to go. Public appearances weren't really my thing, but I agreed. Somewhere in that crowd was a friend of hers. Maybe an old coworker. Maybe just someone who couldn't help themselves. All I know is that 3 days later, Sabrina sent me one final message. Just a photo. It was me on stage, mid-speech, smiling, really smiling for the first time in years. The caption? Just one sentence. I didn't know what I had. I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty. But because that was the moment I knew for sure, I wasn't hers anymore. Not in the smallest way. Not even in memory. She still lived in the same town, last I heard. Moved into a small rental not far from where we used to live. She didn't keep the car, or the wardrobe, or the friends who'd seen the truth and quietly disappeared. I imagine some nights she pours a glass of wine and wonders where it all went wrong. Maybe she still tells herself that I changed first, that she just reacted. But deep down, I think she knows. You don't lose a good man overnight. You just spend too long pretending he isn't one, until one day he stops pretending he's yours. And by then, it's too damn late.
Dear listeners,